Let's talk about some valuable pieces of writing advice that I've had to learn the hard way over the years. As a creative writing student, I can promise you that these 9 lessons are so underrated that they will transform your life, because they transformed mine when I first learned them. So let's get started. My first lesson is focus on being the writer and not the author. Now you might say, Srishti, aren't those the same things? Nope. There is a small difference which makes a huge impact, especially on the mindset of the writer. An author is a writer whose work has been published somewhere. And all writers at some point have this ambition of getting their work published. And due to that ambition, sometimes they tend to overlook the essence of the story itself. And that's usually because the writer is trying to fit their story under the guidelines of a publishing house or the demand of a certain target audience. Now, I'm not saying that it's wrong to want to get published. Of course, that's what you want, because every writer wants their work to be read, loved, and appreciated in the public. You want that, and there's nothing wrong about it. But you need to be careful to try and not think about selling the work while you're writing it. Look at it this way. The job of a writer is to serve the story, whereas the job of an author is to serve the story to the world. So by that logic, you need to be a writer and an author both. You need both these modes in your life, but at separate stages. You want to be the writer first while you're writing the story, while you're serving the story. And then later on, once your work is ready, that's when you want to go into the author mode and try to sell your work and serve your story to the world. Just don't try to be both the writer and the author at the same point, especially when you're writing it. Don't think about selling it, because if you do, you're gonna write a big hot mess. My second lesson says, rewriting is the key. A big mistake that new writers make is they write the first draft, they self-edit the novel, they send it to the editor, and then they decide to publish it. They start sending it out to the publishing houses, or they begin their self-publishing process. What they don't realize is that they're missing a very crucial step in this process, which is rewriting. So essentially, when you attempt to rewrite a piece from scratch, you get the opportunity to play around with the story and try to find the best version of telling the story to the world. Remember what we talked about in the first point, how the job of a writer is to serve the story? Well, you need to serve the best version of that story. It's like going on a first date. Would you decide to marry someone after the first date? Ridiculous, right? You'll actually go on a few dates, a bunch of dates, and lots of dates before you decide to marry that person. In the same way, why would you assume that the best way to tell a story is the first way that came to your mind? That's not how it works. In fact, the first draft is you telling the story to yourself and not to the world. That's why once you're done with your first draft, I highly recommend sitting down with it and rewriting large portions of it from a different perspective, a completely different angle. At this point of the video, if you're getting any value out of it, please hit the like button and consider subscribing, because on this channel we talk all about writing compelling novels and creating rich, vivid experiences for your readers. Moving on, my next lesson is make it complex, not complicated. Most newbie writers believe that if you add a lot of complicated details to your story, to your plot, then that makes it more interesting and intriguing. But what actually ends up happening in reality is that your story turns confusing, overwhelming, and your readers feel fed up. So what you need to do instead is to understand that human emotions are complex, and that's why your story needs to be complex in the emotions as well. However, your job as the writer is to understand that complexity and convey that complexity to your reader in the simplest way possible. The trick here is not to keep adding details and muddling your story, but it is to simplify your plot and try conveying the human emotions, the character emotions, using subtext and using the actions of your characters and not those details of the plot. If conveying emotions using subtext is something that you struggle with and want me to create a dedicated video just for subtext and conveying the emotions, then comment the phrase, "I want that subtext video." My next lesson for you is write for a clever reader. A famous problem that most writers struggle with is trying to find your target audience. I struggled with this issue too until my teacher mentioned that no matter what genre you're writing, you must always be writing for mature men and women. Unless you're writing for children, of course, which is not the point of this video. The point is, when you're in the process of writing, forget about genres, categories, and all of those things, and instead just focus on writing for a clever reader. What I mean by that is, do not try to explain everything that is already being implied in your subtext. Now, this may seem like a contradiction to my previous point, but hear me out. Readers love feeling intelligent. So when you over-explain things which have already been implied in the dialogue and the subtext and all the other elements, when you're already showing those things and the reader have understood that already, and when you try to over-explain that, it just annoys the reader. Because one, they feel that the story is just dragging on, and second, you're making them feel stupid, which is the opposite of what they love to feel. Now, you might wonder, but Srishti, what about those readers who are not intelligent? Those readers who might need that explanation? Well, the truth is, those readers are actually training to become intelligent by reading your book. That's why people read books, because they want to increase the level of their intelligence and their understanding. Even fiction, yes, that's exactly why they read books. So, just keep this in mind and focus on the clever reader and not the stupid ones, because most stupid people don't read books. My next lesson that I've had to learn the hard way is the fact that slow revelations are better than plot twists. If you believe that a plot twist is the ultimate strategy to satisfy your reader, you couldn't be more wrong, my friend, and you're certainly missing out. Because in my experience, slow revelations work so much better than plot twists. Here's why. What a plot twist does is that it catches your reader off guard. Whereas, when you reveal the same twist, slowly using smaller clues, it makes your reader feel clever, makes them feel intelligent, as if they are figuring out, they are investigating the mystery, as if they are living this experience. In other words, a plot twist leads to a blast of dopamine in your reader's brain, whereas a slow revelation leads to smaller installments of that dopamine release, which keeps your reader curious for a longer period of time and therefore leads them to a larger level of satisfaction with your story. Next lesson I have is listen to what you don't want to listen. We as readers always want to hear readers praising our work, but oftentimes what's most helpful in our journey is the negative feedback that we receive from our editors, beta readers, or anyone who you asked for feedback. So the next time you ask for feedback, instead of getting defensive or ignoring the feedback, try to look at it objectively, because that's the only way to grow as a writer, is that to look at the feedback and to understand where you can improve. Because it all boils down to this fact. Good feedback will make you feel good for a day, 2 days, maybe a month. But negative feedback will actually help you improve as a writer and become the better version of your own self. If you're struggling with negative feedback, check out this video that I have. Next up, I have Kill Your Darlings. I would be a bad writer if I didn't mention this in this video. Maybe you already heard that term, or maybe you haven't. But anyway, it means removing your feelings, like keeping your feelings aside, especially when you're editing and especially when you're deleting scenes. Oftentimes, as writers, we tend to get attached to our work. We tend to love certain portions of our writing because it reminds us of certain memories, or we just had fun writing a specific scene. But no matter how much you enjoyed writing that scene, if it doesn't serve the story, it needs to go. So always try to keep your ego aside and remember your job as the writer to serve the story and not your own ego and your feelings of pride and whatever. Your job is just to serve the story, and if a scene doesn't fit into the story very smoothly as butter, then that scene needs to get out. If you struggle with deleting scenes, then the best way is to remove the scene and then read the story and see how the piece works without that scene. If the story works quite well and if it doesn't decrease in its quality significantly, then that scene can be left out and your story is good to go. My next lesson is don't be afraid to write bad stuff. Every writer struggles with this inhibition that their writing is bad, and it probably is. But the good thing is that this is not a bad thing. Well, the truth is, everything you write in your first draft is going to be crap by default until it's edited. Over and over and over again. It's gonna be edited like 100 times maybe before it can be something good. So when you're writing, in the process, everything is gonna be crap by default. So why do you feel afraid of writing bad stuff? Because you have something called editing to fix everything that you've ever written. Remember, you can always edit a bad page, but never a blank page. So punch the fear and keep on writing. My next lesson is a controversial one, so brace yourself. It is writer's block is actually a myth. Okay, hear me out. I was reading this book called Make Time, and the author talks about how you're always choosing what to do with your time. You're actually making a choice every single second of your life. Even now, when you're watching this video and you're choosing whether or not to process everything that I'm saying. Hopefully you're choosing to believe everything I'm saying because, I'm such a doll. But what I'm trying to say is that at any given moment, you can always choose to work upon your story or choose not to work upon your story. It all comes down to you taking control of that choice and then deciding whether or not to write. You can always control when to write, what to write. What you cannot control is the quality of your writing. But we've already talked about why you shouldn't be afraid of writing bad stuff. So I would say just punch the fear in the face and tell yourself that I'm going to choose to write right now in this moment, and I'm not going to be afraid of writing bad stuff. Put those things together, and so writer's block will actually become a myth for you in your life. If still you're struggling with other things, if you're struggling with a lot of other time management things, attention management things, if you're struggling with procrastination, then I suggest watching this video next, because there I take you through 8 different types of procrastination that writers deal with, and I teach you how to overcome each one of them one by one. I hope to see you there next after this video. Alright, this is me, Srishti Rathore, signing off for this video. I hope you found it helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next in this video right here. Bye!